the most important time of the year for me. And unfortunately, you know, the green one is not currently, I don't currently have access to the green Snuggie, but we got the red Snuggie on. But also there was this draft lottery thing that happened.
The entire WNBA world stopped the moment the draft lottery results dropped because nobody expected the Dallas Wings to land the first pick again. Social media exploded, analysts froze on camera, and fans had no idea whether to celebrate or panic. The repeat #1 pick instantly created tension across the league because this time the stakes are even higher.
The draft lottery happened today with the Sky getting the 5th pick, the Mystics getting the 4th pick, the Storm getting the 3rd pick, the Lynx getting the 2nd pick, and the Dallas Wings getting the 1st pick. Basically, it is the exact order of records.
Teams are scrambling, free agency plans are shifting, and the entire landscape of the 2026 season suddenly feels unpredictable. The question now is simple but explosive. What will Dallas do with this massive opportunity, and who will pay the price next?
I'm going to be honest, this is very, very important for the Dallas Wings because there is a obvious pick because you're not going to be great. Like, it depends. Sorry. There are two ways you go about this. You go and either get hot in free agency and get a lot of the top players.
The moment the lottery results were revealed, the atmosphere shifted from excitement to complete disbelief. Fans expected chaos, but not this level of déjà vu. Seeing the Dallas Wings snag the #1 pick for the 2nd straight year felt like the league timeline glitched. Commentators tried to keep their composure, but even they couldn't hide the shock on their faces as the graphic flashed across the screen. The reactions came fast. Some fans celebrated, claiming Dallas finally had the leverage to rebuild the right way.
You go and then draft AZ Fudd as this complementary piece. Like, let's just say hypothetically, you manage to use the cap space and convince players, we're going UConn. We're going UConn. And you manage to convince, you just go, you know what, Tina Charles, you come in as our backup. You're going to be our backup center. Fee, Stewie, Azare. We can afford every one of yous. We can afford all 3 of yous.
Others insisted the league was entering an era of imbalance and that this pick would tilt the entire competitive landscape. The conversation quickly moved beyond luck. People started questioning what this meant for the rest of the offseason. Teams that were banking on getting a franchise cornerstone suddenly had to rethink their free agency strategy.
There's only 2 ways you go with this pick. You go with if you don't bring in all these incredible free agents to win a title immediately, you bring in Awafam because Awafam is the best prospects here. If you don't, or if you want to go develop a duo with this draft, you draft Awafam because I'm going to be honest, there's no center in 2027 that's even close to Awafam.
Front offices that expected the Wings to slide down the order were now scrambling to protect themselves from what Dallas might do next. The Wings already held a reputation for unpredictable roster moves and winning. Another top pick only intensified a sense of uncertainty around the league. What made the moment even crazier was that Dallas didn't just win a pick, they won leverage. They now have the power to shape not only their future, but the future of teams hoping to compete immediately.
There's no center in 2028, not named Sarah Strong. You're not going to get the #1 pick again. There's no big that's even close to Awafam in 2028, not named Sarah Strong. There's no big in 2029 from what we've seen so far that's even remotely in the stratosphere of Awafam. And that's where the issue is like, there's not that many modern bigs in women's basketball. You can count them on 2 hands. And modern bigs that are capable of playing the WNBA.
Fans online pointed out that last year's pick already created pressure on rival franchises. This year's pick doubles that tension and forces everyone to prepare for a scenario where the Wings could pair 2 elite prospects together. The buzz wasn't just about who Dallas might draft, it was about how this changes everything around them. Will they chase a star in free agency and build a super team overnight? Or will they commit to a long-term vision built around back-to-back top prospects? No one knows, and that uncertainty became the fuel pushing every debate forward. But the real shock was still coming, because analysts quickly realized this draft isn't just about talent. It is about timing, opportunity, and a hidden advantage that only Dallas now holds. And that's where the drama truly begins.
Look, I think we'll know who's going to go number one based on free agency. I don't think we're going to know who's going to be number one based on this pick. We're going to see how they do in free agency. Like, if we see Dallas striking out on the stars, if we see most people going back to their normal teams or to their current teams, then absolutely we'll see them going for Alpha Fam. Like, what they're not going to do is make a bunch of strikeout in free agency and then make a win now move in out AZ foot. But they might make a win now pick if they do well in free agency.
As the dust settled from the initial shock, attention turned to the deeper issue that immediately began stirring controversy. The Wings weren't just lucky. They were suddenly holding the most valuable asset in a draft class loaded with potential franchise changers. Analysts emphasized that this year's number one pick could define the next era of women's basketball. And now Dallas had the chance to control that future for the second straight season. The timing couldn't be more dramatic, because the Wings are approaching a crossroads. Their young core is talented but inconsistent. Their veterans are still unproven as leaders, and their fan base has been begging for stability. This draft might force the front office to finally pick a direction. Some insiders argued that Dallas will chase immediate success. They believe the Wings have enough cap flexibility to lure a star in free agency, especially with several big names expected to test the market. If that happens, the number one pick becomes a perfect complementary weapon. They could draft a player who can contribute right away and elevate the roster without needing years of development. For these fans, the dream scenario is simple. Load up with proven veterans, add a top prospect, and make an aggressive push for a deep playoff run next year. But another group sees things differently. They think Dallas should commit to a long-term blueprint. Build around two high-ceiling prospects, embrace a slower rebuild, and shape a roster that peaks 2 or 3 seasons from now. This approach reflects what several championship teams have done in the past, stacking young talent until it matures together, with the Wings winning another number one pick. That strategy suddenly feels more realistic than ever. The split in opinions created friction across social platforms. Comment sections filled with arguments over whether Dallas should aim for immediate glory or build for sustained dominance. Even rival fan bases jumped into the debate, because the Wings' final decision would impact everyone else. But underneath all the noise, a more subtle problem was forming. The identity of this draft class makes the decision even harder. The top prospects aren't just talented, they represent completely different paths for the franchise. And choosing between those paths could reshape the entire league. Once the conversation shifted toward the incoming draft class, the temperature around the league rose even higher. This isn't an ordinary group of prospects. It is a class defined by two contrasting stars who represent completely different visions for the future of any franchise that drafts them. On one side stands the modern, versatile big who can stretch the floor, defend in space, and anchor a team for the next decade. On the other stands the dynamic guard whose playmaking and scoring ability could redefine an entire offense. These two prospects created a natural fork in the road, and Dallas now stands directly at that crossroads. Every analyst who watched this class unfold knows the truth. The Wings can't afford to miss. Last year's number one pick already gave them a foundational piece. This year's choice must either elevate that foundation or build the second half of a future superstar duo. That is why fans are obsessed with the possibilities. If Dallas pairs their young talent with the right complement, they could create one of the most dangerous young combinations the league has seen in years. But if they choose the wrong path, they risk wasting back-to-back golden opportunities. The big question became whether Dallas wants to shape their roster around a dominant interior presence or lean into a guard-driven future that keeps up with the rising scoring trends across the league. Analysts debated matchups, strengths, and long-term projections. Fans posted endless mock drafts showcasing how each prospect changes the Wings' entire identity. The excitement came from imagining how their roster might evolve once a second elite talent enters the mix. The pressure is heavy because each option carries major consequences. Picking the big could modernize the Wings' defense and give them a reliable scoring option inside. Choosing the guard could supercharge their offense and help them compete with the fast-paced perimeter attacks of top contenders. Either path is bold, and either path will shape Dallas for years to come. But the biggest twist arrived when insiders revealed something strong enough to shift the narrative entirely. The Wings' ultimate decision may not even depend on the draft class itself. It may depend on what happens before the draft begins. As analysts continued breaking down the strengths of each top prospect, insiders began revealing information that changed the tone of the entire discussion. The Wings' decision might not come down to pure talent at all. Instead, everything could hinge on free agency. Dallas enters the offseason with more cap flexibility than usual and an opportunity to reshape their roster before draft night even arrives. This means the number one pick is no longer just a choice between prospects. It becomes a strategic response to whatever unfolds over the next few months. The draft might be exciting, but free agency will determine the true direction of the franchise. If Dallas strikes gold in free agency and manages to secure a superstar or two high-level impact players, the draft instantly shifts into a different mode. The Wings would then prioritize someone who can support a win-now core. Someone who fits alongside veteran leadership and can contribute from the moment training camp begins. In that scenario, a more polished, ready-made prospect becomes the logical choice. Fans who want immediate playoff success believe this is the path that finally pushes the Wings out of their constant cycle of inconsistency. But if free agency doesn't go in their favor, the narrative takes a sharp turn. Missing out on top talents would push Dallas in the opposite direction, toward a long game built on developing elite young talent. Suddenly, the prospect with the highest long-term upside becomes the priority. This approach mirrors what several dynasties once did, stacking young stars until the pieces aligned. For a franchise that has hovered between potential and frustration for years, building around to future cornerstones might be the most secure path forward. Free agency also affects how rival teams prepare. If the Wings load up with veterans, opponents must prepare for a dangerous new playoff threat. If they invest in young talent, teams know they have a small window to strike before Dallas matures. That uncertainty creates tension across the league, fueling debates about who benefits and who suffers from the Wings holding this pick again. Yet even with all the speculation, one detail keeps the drama alive. Dallas has a history of unpredictable moves, and that unpredictability makes everyone wonder what their real plan might be. The unpredictability of the Dallas front office quickly became the central theme of every debate. Fans know this franchise well enough to understand one thing: Dallas does not follow the script everyone expects. Over the past few seasons, the Wings have shocked the league with unconventional rotations, surprise trades, and draft decisions that seemed confusing in the moment but made sense months later. This reputation is exactly why people are both nervous and excited about what they might do with the number one pick again. Analysts keep trying to predict their next move, but history shows that Dallas often chooses the option nobody saw coming. This unpredictability adds another layer of tension for rival teams. The moment the Wings landed the top pick, social media began suggesting every wild scenario imaginable. Some fans believe Dallas might trade the pick for a veteran star. Others think they might double down on young talent and create a future powerhouse. Some even floated the idea that Dallas could package multiple assets to reshape their entire identity in one aggressive move. The possibilities feel endless because Dallas has never been afraid to make dramatic decisions when pressure is high. What fuels the uncertainty, even more, is the personality of the draft class itself. These prospects are not interchangeable. Choosing one completely reshapes the style of basketball Dallas will play for years. That means the front office must decide whether they want to lean into a fast-paced perimeter identity or commit to a more balanced, inside-out approach. Both strategies come with benefits, and both require different types of supporting players. This decision forces Dallas to think beyond the draft and consider how the entire roster should look in the next few seasons. Fans from other franchises are paying attention as well. Some fear Dallas might finally unlock their potential. Others hope they make a risky choice that backfires. The emotional stakes are high because another elite prospect joining the Wings could swing the competitive balance of the league. Every team is watching with caution, knowing their own future could be affected by what Dallas decides. But just when people thought they had mapped out all the possible outcomes, a new wrinkle surfaced that changed the conversation yet again. The conversation took a sharp turn when insiders started highlighting the role of roster chemistry in the Wings' long-term outlook. Talent alone has never been the issue in Dallas. The roster has featured skilled players for years, yet the results have never fully matched the potential on paper. Analysts pointed out that adding another top prospect is only useful if the team finally builds a system where their stars grow together, instead of clashing in style or development timeline. This realization opened a deeper debate about how the Wings should shape their roster around whoever becomes the newest face of the franchise. The biggest concern revolves around fit. Dallas has struggled to find a stable identity, often shifting between guard-heavy lineups and interior-focused schemes. Their coaching staff has experimented with different combinations, but chemistry has always lagged behind the talent. This draft presents another chance to reset the foundation, but it also increases the pressure to get it right. Choosing a prospect whose strengths do not align with the current core could create another cycle of inconsistency. Bringing in the right piece could finally give the Wings a clear direction and a unified vision. Fans are already imagining how this potential pick fits with last year's selection, recent breakout players, and veterans who may return next season. Some see a harmony forming, believing the combination could blossom into one of the most balanced young teams in the league. Others worry that forcing too many rising stars into one system could lead to internal competition, role confusion, and stalled development. The stakes are high because Dallas cannot afford another season of untapped potential. This discussion also pulled rival teams into the conversation. Coaches across the league know that if Dallas ever figures out its chemistry issues, the Wings could become a long-term threat. That possibility forces other franchises to adjust their strategies, not just for next season, but for the next several years. The Wings' next move might determine how teams draft, trade, and build their cores. Yet no matter how much analysts analyze or fans debate, one unpredictable factor still looms over everything. Free agency, player movement, and internal changes could flip the entire situation once more, creating an even more complicated decision for Dallas. As debates intensified, the focus shifted toward the growing arms race happening across the league. Teams that once dismissed Dallas as unpredictable or inconsistent were suddenly forced to take them seriously. The Wings holding back-to-back #1 picks created a ripple effect that touched every major contender. Front offices began evaluating their own weaknesses, knowing Dallas could soon field a roster capable of disrupting the hierarchy. This pressure sparked new conversations about trades, lineup changes, and off-season strategies around the league. The Wings hadn't made a move yet, but the fear of what they might do was already influencing everyone else. Rival coaches acknowledged that a single franchise landing consecutive top prospects can reshape competitive balance. If Dallas selects a player who pairs well with last year's pick, they could become a force that grows stronger each season. This potential rise forces contenders to look beyond short-term fixes and instead prepare long-term defensive schemes, scouting adjustments, and roster changes specifically aimed at containing what Dallas could become. The Wings were no longer seen as a team trying to figure things out. They were becoming a franchise other teams actively planned. Around what amplified the tension even more was the possibility of Dallas combining their draft capital with existing talent to orchestrate a blockbuster move. Fans began buzzing about scenarios where the Wings trade for a veteran star, flip picks for experienced leaders, or create one of the most balanced rosters in the league. Each rumor came with its own set of consequences for other franchises, fueling the sense that Dallas' next decision could trigger a chain reaction across the WNBA. This shift also affected player perception. Free agents who once overlooked Dallas might now see them as a rising destination. Young players envision potential partnerships. Veterans see a team that might be one piece away from making serious noise. The Wings' newfound influence extends beyond draft night and into the psychology of the league. Amid all this uncertainty, One question continued to echo across social media and sports shows. Was Dallas finally on the verge of becoming a powerhouse? Or would the pressure of another monumental decision expose their flaws once again? With the league on edge and fans arguing nonstop, the conversation reached its peak when analysts began confronting the real turning point behind Dallas' situation. Back-to-back #1 picks aren't just about draft luck or future potential. They represent a moment where a franchise must redefine who they are and what they want to become. The Wings have hovered between promise and frustration for years, always close to a breakthrough but never fully arriving. Now, with another premium pick in hand, the excuses are gone. Every decision from this point forward will shape how the team is remembered for the next decade. This is where the pressure becomes undeniable. Dallas cannot afford another season of uncertainty, shifting rotations, or inconsistent identity. With two elite talents entering the franchise in consecutive years, the Wings must finally commit to a clear direction. Are they building a long-term dynasty built on youth and development? Or are they preparing for an immediate playoff push built around a mix of veterans and rising stars? Either approach can work, but only if the front office follows through with conviction and clarity. Fans sense the urgency. Social media is filled with predictions, mock trade ideas, and bold takes about where the Wings will land next. Some insist this is the beginning of a new era. Others warn that Dallas is one wrong move away from another season of untapped potential. Everyone agrees on one thing: this draft will be remembered. For better or worse, the league feels the tension too. Contenders are preparing for a more dangerous Dallas. Rebuilding teams are studying how the Wings use their assets. Free agents are watching to see whether the franchise can deliver on its promise. The Wings' next move will shape not only their future, but the competitive landscape around them. As the draft approaches, the noise grows louder. Every rumor, every leaked report, every analyst breakdown adds more fuel to the fire. Dallas has the tools to reshape everything, but they must choose wisely. And that single decision is what the entire WNBA is waiting for, because it could define the balance of power for years to come. As draft night inches closer, all eyes remain locked on the Dallas Wings. Landing the #1 pick for the second straight year has placed them at the center of the league's attention. And every franchise is preparing for the ripple effects of their next move. Dallas now has the rare chance to reshape its identity, elevate its talent, and shift the balance of power across the WNBA, whether they pursue immediate success or build a long-term dynasty. The pressure has never been greater. One decision will define their future, and the entire league is waiting to see what happens next.